Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Building Up a FinTech Ecosystem in Africa, Lessons from the Singapore Success Story, brought to you by Casablanca Finance City and Entreprise Singapore. My name is Manal Bernoussi. I'll be your moderator for this program, and I am so much looking forward to what's coming next. Let's give a few moments, just a few seconds for our audience to jump in. You have been so many to register, and we are really, really excited about that. Welcome, welcome. Aaron, I can see you. Alpha, Amin, welcome guys, so good to see you. I can see you joining in. Hello, Asala. Hello, Samuel. Hi, Ibrahim. So good to see you guys. Wherever you are, drop us a message in the chat box to say hi. Tell us which city you're connecting from. Tell us about yourself. We kind of all in the same FinTech community here, so we'd love to know more about you. We'll be spending the next 75 minutes together. This program will end around 11:15 Morocco time, 6:15 Singapore time. So, okay, before we get started, I'd like to give the audience a very quick overview of the Zoom platform we're using today. This is a very unique opportunity to make the most of this time we're spending together. At the bottom of the screen, you will notice a feature. Most important button out there is the Q&A widget. This is where we ask questions during the webinar. And if you have any question for a specific speaker, please type his or her first name and then your question in the Q&A box so that I know who to direct it to. I would encourage you at any time to submit your questions. For those of you who would prefer to type their questions in French, that's perfectly fine. The team and I will make sure to translate them and address them to our speakers. This is also a unique opportunity to interact, even though we cannot see each other, but there's a whole team back here that is really reading all your comments one by one. So make sure to use the chat box that you see down there. Tell us about yourself. Maybe you're a FinTech looking to find your partner or the right incubator. Maybe you're a corporate and you're open to be a mentor and offer some of your time. Maybe you work for a regulator and you're here to know more about Singapore's journey. Whatever the reason you have joined us today, let us know below. A summary of today's content and a publication of the landscape of the FinTech industry in Africa conducted by CFC and PwC will be available for you on our website. So make sure to check that out. This program is also being recorded, so you'll be able to share it with colleagues. Just tap the QR code you can see on the screen right now. It will take you to our YouTube channels and you can access it there once it's uploaded. Today's a big day, so I do recommend for you to stick around till the end. This is a unique opportunity to connect with like-minded people, be part of the FinTech community. We'll be sharing QR codes to stay in touch later on. So now we're all set. I see our audience has jumped in. Hello again to everyone. It's time for us to get started. And it is my privilege to introduce to you the CEO of Casablanca Finance City, Mr. Saïd Ibrahimi.
Thank you, Manal. A good morning or a good afternoon, depending on where you are connecting from. I'm glad to see we have such an international audience today. I'd like to wish you all a very warm welcome to today's webinar, co-organized with Entreprise Singapore. Special thanks to Mr. Mohamed Horani for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here, reinforcing the strong link between Morocco and Singapore. And of course, special thanks and warm welcome to all our guests and speakers. Our partnership with Singapore holds a special place in my heart, as it was the first international partnership CFC has signed with another financial center. This goes back to 2011. We then had identified Singapore as the best benchmark for us to get inspired from. Singapore has established itself as the business and financial hub for Southeast Asia on a short span of time. Casablanca Finance City has the same ambition for Africa. This past decade, we have focused our energy on building a thriving community of high-profile companies dedicated to African growth, while building a unique business environment with a dedicated framework and promoting Casablanca as a business location. As all international financial centers, we have been observing trends and evolutions of the industry with much attention. Fintech companies are disrupting the sector in a positive way, providing new products for consumers and catering to new market segments that were not served before. In our digital age, even more so with the current COVID crisis, consumers are increasingly ready to embrace digital wallets and contactless payments. In this field and many other segments, fintechs have substantial potential. Here, I would like to address a message to the startups and entrepreneurs in the audience. I know many are listening to us today. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, 5G, there are many ways and opportunities to shape your journey if you surround yourself with like-minded people, engage within a community, and thrive to make a difference. And we will be there for you along the way. I am taking this opportunity to announce to you an upcoming innovation initiative that we are launching with the Casablanca CETAT region, which is the largest region in Morocco, to support and promote Morocco's and Africa's fintech ecosystem. This is fresh news. We are happy to partner with Mr. Bakouri and his team to be offering soon concrete actions to support our fintechs and help them grow. So more news to come, and I encourage you to reach out to us to stay in touch. Before I end this note, thanks again for joining us today. I am confident that listening to our distinguished speakers will bring great value and inspire us all in building together a strong and thriving fintech community. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Saïd. Awesome news about the fintech, official fintech initiative between CFC and Casastat region. So stay tuned, y'all, for more info on that. Welcome to all of you who have just joined us. Singapore is in the room, Rwanda is in the room, Rabat, Casablanca, Ivory Coast. So exciting to have you here all, guys. And now all the way from Singapore, we're very happy to hear from the Global Markets Executive Director, Middle East and Africa at Entreprise Singapore, which is the government agency under the Ministry of Trade and Industry in Singapore, Mr. Jayakrishnan. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and participating in today's webinar from wherever you're based, I understand, Asia, Africa, the Middle East. To begin, I must thank our partners and our very good friends at the Casablanca Finance City for co-organizing this webinar with us. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with the CFC. In times like this, where we are all in, when borders are being closed and economies are turning inwards, initiatives like this one are critical to ensure that like-minded partners continue to engage, continue to remain open, and continue to create opportunities for all of us. Enterprise Singapore is the government agency in Singapore that helps small and medium-sized companies to develop and grow. We have over 30 offices around the world through which we connect Singapore companies to overseas partners so that opportunities and business can flow in both directions. Now, this event, this webinar is really about exchanging experiences and sharing lessons that relate to the development of a vibrant fintech ecosystem. The fintech ecosystem in Singapore has grown very fast in the last 5 to 8 years. There are many, many reasons for this, and some of which are more fundamental than others. I'm sure the speakers that will speak later will discuss and get into this much more. But what I would say is obviously the fintech sector has brought in a lot of investment, strengthened Singapore as a financial hub, and most importantly, perhaps, created good jobs. And I think that's something that we all want, and it's even more relevant today. So on behalf of Enterprise Singapore, I would like to end off by obviously expressing our very, very sincere and deep appreciation to all the speakers, panelists, and you, the participants, for taking the time and being part of this. For the participants, I do urge you to take the opportunity to ask the questions, get as many insights as you can, and hopefully get some business done in time to come. So with that, let me hand it back to the MC. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Jayakrishnan, for your words. Our next speaker is obviously very well known in Morocco. He is the architect of PowerCard, multi-channel payment software developed by his company HPS and used by more than 400 financial institutions in 90 countries in Africa, Europe, the Middle East, North America, and Asia. Amongst his clients, the largest fintech of Indonesia, you've probably heard of Gojek, which is widely recognized as a unicorn in Southeast Asia and beyond, valued over $10 billion US. He sits as a board member of the Moroccan Economic, Social, and Environmental Council. He previously served as president of CGM, the General Confederation of the Private Sector in Morocco. But what you might not know is that the government of the Republic of Singapore has appointed him as Singapore's Honorary Consul General in Casablanca with jurisdiction throughout Morocco. Mr. Mohamed Horani, we're happy to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Mr. CEO of Casa Finance City, Mr. Executive Director of Global Markets, honorable speakers, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you to this webinar, which focuses on building up a fintech ecosystem in Africa inspired by Singapore's success story. I would like to congratulate the organizers for choosing this team and to thank them for giving me the opportunity to participate to this meeting. This event is organized within the framework of the excellent relationship between the Kingdom of Morocco and the Republic of Singapore. The two friendly countries occupy a strategic place in their respective regions. Morocco is a regional hub with free trade agreements that open up the market for over 1 billion consumers. Singapore is the fourth international finance center. The financial services sector currently contributes for around 11% of Singapore's GDP. I am very happy that you can discover today the key factors for this success through Singapore's inspiring experience. Ladies and gentlemen, as the CEO of the HPS Group, allow me to share with you my vision on the evolution of the ecosystem and the place of fintechs in the payment market. I must stress that the payment segment is historically the most important and the most dynamic one on fintech industry. Thanks to digital, customers are more connected, better informed, and more demanding. They want faster, easier to use, and cheaper payment services. The three main disruptions in the payment markets are, first, the primacy of customer relations, a more mature customer using new technologies and increasingly volatile and unfaithful. The monetization of data on customer behavior, which is considered as a high strategic priority. The tendency to integrate the acts of purchase and payment as one unique transaction in order to improve and optimize the customer experience. These transformations have encouraged a reconfiguration of the payment market, which is made up of three categories of players. Traditional players, in particular banks, which benefit from the trust of customers, but who are vulnerable by structural and regulatory constraints to meet effectively the new requirement of their customers. Fintechs, agile companies, halfway between the traditional financial sector and new digital use, and which offer innovative payment services with disruptive business models. The giant of technology and e-commerce, telecom operators, and other players who use their core business and the data collected from their customers to offer them personalized payment services accessible with just one click with unprecedented customer experience. Central banks are not silent on technology and are determined to play their part in the innovation of financial services. This is why around 40 central banks are seriously considering issuing central bank digital currency. What is the current situation? 10 years after the appearance of the first fintechs, we see that their market share is insignificant. The description announced is exaggerated. It comes up against the complexity of the payment market, which is characterized by the multiplicity of players and the heavy weight of the legacy. We are seeing the emergence of partnership and mergers between the different categories of the ecosystem, and the reconfiguration of the payment market is becoming more rational. Ecosystem players have come to understand that it is necessary to combine their efforts and their complementary business to respond more effectively, faster, and at lower cost to new customer requirements. The role of fintechs is crucial in this ecosystem to provide their agility and their ability to innovate. In conclusion, the complementarity between Singapore and Morocco, supported by the sharing of the values of openness and tolerance, as well as the legitimate ambition displayed by each of the two friendly countries in their respective regions, constitute levers that we must use in order to develop our economic and cultural relationship. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Horani, for your insightful perspective. Indeed, international cooperation is key, and we must use that to move forward. I know you had a prior commitment today, but insisted on accepting our invitation, so thank you so much for that. Mr. Horani will be listening to our next speakers and then eventually leave the room when he has to. Thanks again. So moving on smoothly through our program, we are now welcoming our keynote speaker from Monetary Authority of Singapore. MAS is Singapore's central bank and integrated financial regulator. They also work with the financial industry to develop Singapore as a dynamic international financial center. Ms. Jael is manager at the Fintech and Innovation Group of MAS. She will be delivering the keynote speech and sharing Singapore's journey in building their thriving fintech ecosystem. Welcome to you, Ms. Tan.
Thanks so much, Manal. That was a great introduction. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Hope you can see it soon. All right, I trust that you can see my screen now. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share more about the Singapore Fintech ecosystem. So Singapore's Fintech ecosystem has grown exponentially in a short span of time, since its humble beginnings in 2015 to a Fintech hub that's ranked among one of the top 3 hubs globally. So in 2015, MES laid out its vision of a smart financial center, where innovation is pervasive and technology is used to increase efficiency, manage risks better, create new opportunities, and improve people's lives. When we started in 2015, we had about 50 fintech firms. Today, Singapore is home to more than 1,100 fintechs, offering a wide range of solutions and services in payments and remittance, wealth management, insurance, and so on. Singapore's fintech investments reached a record high of US 1.2 billion in 2019, doubling the 2018 number of 365 US million. This year, despite the pandemic, the fintech sector continued to attract equity funding and M&A amounting in excess of 465 million US dollars in the first half of the year, up from 19% against the first half of 2019. This success is attributed to MES's initiatives and close engagement with industry stakeholders such as financial institutions, fintechs, tech companies, investors, institutes of higher learning, and ecosystem enablers, all together to recognize the importance and need to embrace innovation. This is also a testament to the continued confidence in Singapore as a leading global fintech hub. In a nutshell, we owe the success of our fintech journey to 5 main areas. The regulation effect. MES approach to regulation, it's one that's twofold: to provide regulation conducive to innovation while fostering safety and security, and to facilitate the infrastructure for an innovative ecosystem and the adoption of new technologies. The FinTech Regulatory Sandbox is an example, which was introduced in 2016 for FIs and FinTech players to test their innovations within controlled boundaries. The objective of the sandbox is to evaluate regulations or policies that may impede beneficial new technologies or business models, rather than product testing, which assesses consumer uptake and commercial viability. MES launched the Sandbox Express in August 2019 to provide firms with a faster option to test innovative products. Eligible companies can begin market testing in the predefined environment 21 days from applying to MES. In the same manner, the Payment Services Act provides a forward-looking and flexible framework for the regulation of payment systems and payment service providers in Singapore, while encouraging innovation and growth of payment services in fintech. By streamlining and updating the regulatory framework into a modular activity-based framework, the Payment Services Board addresses key emerging risks and creates a safe and efficient payments ecosystem. MES has also signed fintech cooperation agreements with 33 counterparts from around the world. These agreements provide a framework for closer collaboration on fintech, as well as promote innovation in financial services in respective markets. Some of these agreements have yielded tangible outcomes, such as internationalization of Singapore fintech companies, anchoring foreign companies in Singapore, and joint innovation projects. MES is also a member of the Global Financial Innovation Network, also known as GFIN, which launched in January 2019 to facilitate experimentation and cooperation between financial services regulators on innovation topics, and to serve as a platform for sharing different experiences and approaches. The platform effect is what I'm going to cover next. What MES has done in recent years is begun to build platforms which act as technology frameworks or digital matchmakers to help facilitate interactions among a large number of participants. The API Exchange, or as we know, the APIX, is the world's first industry-neutral cross-border and open architecture API platform where FIs and fintechs can discover, integrate, and test solutions via a cloud-based architecture. The global cloud-based platform has 3 distinct value propositions. Firstly, it allows FIs and fintech firms to discover and connect with one another through a globally curated fintech marketplace. This marketplace is a well-designed directory of fintech firms and their products or services, organized according to different fintech areas such as payments, KYC, and SME lending. Secondly, it provides a sandbox environment that is connected to the marketplace, allowing FIs and fintechs to collaboratively design experiments to validate solutions in different scenarios using synthetic data without the need to invest in expensive infrastructure to test and adopt solutions. APIX also facilitates FIs' adoption of APIs to deploy new digital transformation solutions that can drive financial inclusion across ASEAN and beyond. The Business Sans Borders, or as we call it BSB, is a meta hub for connecting platforms and their SMEs. What this means is that BSP helps each nation's SMEs seamlessly access a much larger ecosystem of buyers, sellers, logistics service providers, and financing and digital solution providers. BSP utilizes artificial intelligence to enable SMEs to discover prices and sales opportunities in a larger global marketplace, access various supply chains, and easily source and utilize relevant digital and financial solutions. In November 2019, BSP announced the successful completion of its phase 1 proof of concept, and 2020 has been devoted towards a live BSP system. From 2020 onwards, BSP phase 2 will have a standalone entity with a live, open, and international system to link platforms, trade bodies, FIs, and governments, starting with Singapore, India, and Philippines. MES has also created what I'm calling the innovation effect through our strategy for innovation labs and grants. Innovation labs are important touch points for collaboration between financial institutions and fintech firms to take place. MES introduced the Innovation Labs grant to attract financial institutions to set up innovation labs in Singapore to test spit innovative ideas and roll out market solutions. The first batch of labs funded under what we call the Financial Sector Technology and Innovation Scheme, also known as FSTI, generated a network impact of innovation labs and fintech firms in Singapore. From hardly any innovation labs in 2015, that number has now grown to more than 40 across the major banks and insurers. In August this year, MES also launched the Enhanced FSTI 2.0, committing 250 million Singapore dollars over the next 3 years to accelerate technology and innovation-driven growth in the financial sector. This is in addition to 225 million Singapore dollars committed in 2015. Through this enhanced grant, FSTI 2.0 aims to strengthen support for large-scale innovation projects and to build a stronger pipeline of Singaporean talents in fintech. So with the approach that we've taken to nascent technologies such as blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, digital payments, and data connectivity is what we call the network effect. What we're essentially trying to do here is to create a network of quality data that provides the potential for innovation in terms of services, which can be built on top of that data. We achieve a network effect when every additional network member brings more value to the overall network, so the network's value continues to grow and multiply. Such is the case with Project Ubin, which is a collaborative project with the industry to explore the use of blockchain and distributed ledger technology for clearing and settlement of payments and securities. The multi-year, multi-phase project aims to help MES and the industry better understand the technology and potential benefits it may bring through practical implementation. This is with the eventual goal of developing simple to use and more efficient alternatives to today's systems based on digital tokens. Project Ubin has recently completed phase 5, which is its final phase, developing the multi-currency payments model described in its previous phase, which is phase 4. Where the Bank of Canada and MES collaboratively examine alternative models for cross-border payments using blockchain and central bank digital currencies. The network provides connectivity interfaces for other blockchain networks to connect and integrate connectivity seamlessly, providing additional features to support use cases such as delivery versus payment with private exchanges, conditional payments and escrow for trade, and payment and commitments for trade finance. Beyond technical experimentation, this phase also aimed to explore and prove the business value of a blockchain-based payments network, such as enabling business opportunities that would benefit from or be made viable from greater cost efficiencies as compared to existing systems. On AI strategy, MES has developed Veritas, a framework that will enable FIs to evaluate their artificial intelligence and data analytics driven solutions against the principles for fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency, also known as FEAT. This was co-created with the financial industry in 2018 to strengthen internal governance around the application of AI and the management and use of data. Veritas aims to provide FIs with a verifiable way to incorporate the FEAT principles into their IDA solutions. It will comprise open source tools that can be applied to different business lines, such as retail banking and corporate finance, and in different markets. For a start, Veritas will focus on use cases in 2 areas, customer marketing and credit risk scoring. The FEAT principles and Veritas are part of Singapore's national AI strategy and will help to build a progressive and trusted environment for AI adoption within the financial sector. Thirdly, we know that swift, secure, and seamless payments are fundamental to a digital economy. In the same vein, we must also ensure the responsible use of and seamless and secure flow of data. The ability to aggregate, store, process, and transmit data, especially across borders, is critical to the digital age. What we need is more data connectivity and less data localization. Thus, MES has worked on bilateral commitments on cross-border data connectivity with other jurisdictions to promote the adoption and implementation of policies and rules in our bilateral and multilateral economic relationships to facilitate financial services data connectivity. In addition, efforts for use case-driven data corridors are being explored for areas where the financial industry have identified pain points for cross-border data connectivity, such as payment rails to pursue cross-border retail payment linkages. Last but not least, the ecosystem effect. As we know, a strong fintech ecosystem is built up of a network of relationships with different stakeholders. So that includes banks, financial institutions, financial regulators, tech leaders, academic startups, and the investment community. And it's one that continually evolves. The Singapore Fintech Association, or SFA, is one that plays an important role in engaging the fintech ecosystem in Singapore. SFA has a growing membership, so with 782 corporate members comprising fintechs, FIs, and law firms, and 130 individual members in a short span of 3 years. It has also signed more than 55 MOUs with academic institutions, fintech hubs, and private sector entities in Singapore and around the world. To engage the fintech community in Singapore, SFA organizes community events as well as publishes newsletters and research reports, along with organizing overseas trade missions for fintech companies. During the pandemic, it's noteworthy that SFA has played an important role to support fintech firms in Singapore. Initiatives include the MAS SFA AMTD Solidarity Grants that helps fintech firms maintain their operations and boost sales, digital self-assessment framework to fast-track fintech firms' partnerships with FIs, and a jobs and grants portal which lists over 500 vacancies across the fintech space in Singapore. The Deal Fridays is also an ecosystem engagement activity that was started as an initiative to connect startups with potential investors that are keen to tie up with companies with new ideas and scalable business models in their fields. The idea is to limit the time that startups normally need to burn through while seeking new investors. Deal Fridays aims to deliver year-long end-to-end support for global startups, investors, and corporates to maximize commercial success in forging investment deals, co-innovation opportunities, and business partnerships. Specifically tailored to sectoral teams, Deal Fridays consists of a series of carefully curated and targeted investor or corporate startup matchmaking sessions. The FinTech Festival as well is an important one for us. It has grown to become a platform that engages the FinTech ecosystem and to drive cross-border collaboration with other FinTech ecosystems globally. More than just an event, the SFF has become a growing destination for the global FinTech community to come together to carry out business activities that can help them boost sales cycles, make partnerships, and drive investments. Just last year, the SFF joined forces with the Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology, or known as SWITCH, to provide a unified event platform that covers the advancements of technology and new scientific discoveries across multiple industry verticals. So that includes financial services, manufacturing and engineering, urban solutions and sustainability, health, and so on. So SFF and Switch was jointly organized by MES and Entreprise Singapore. The 2019 event attracted more than 60,000 participants from 140 countries, including more than 550 speakers, beyond 7,000 academics and students, more than 2,000 government agencies, and 40 international pavilions that hosted some of the early stage startups. So this year, the SFF and Switch continues to be our grand year-end event to celebrate the progress made by the Singapore FinTech ecosystem and set the outlook for FinTech in 2021 and beyond as well. So returning from 7 to 11 December 2020, SFF and Switch will expand to become the world's first week-long round-the-clock hybrid digital and physical event. Participants can attend either in person or at key physical locations around the world, or they can be connected in an online city experience. So through this combined online-offline platform for the global FinTech and Deep Tech communities, we seek to continue to engage and connect in spite of the current challenges with international travel. The event will feature a hybrid experience, knitting together an online city that runs 24 hours for 5 days with over 40 physical and satellite locations around the world, centered on business activities. On that note, I wanted to share that we have connected with partners in the UAE to drive a FinTech chapter that will engage and mobilize FinTech communities from the Middle East and North Africa region to share thought leadership, showcase their solutions on a global platform, and drive collaborations. The Slingshot program, which is an integral part of Switch and run by Entreprise Singapore, is an international startup competition for promising startups to showcase themselves to investors, corporates, and collaborators. Noteworthy is that last year they received 2,400 applications from global startups from 120 countries, and this year 1,000 more applications were received. So we are also happy to mention that I think 9 startups from Morocco have already applied for this year's edition. Hope to see more. So the pandemic has underscored the need for innovation and resilience to enable people to overcome the greatest challenges. So this is why the theme for this year's event is people and talent. So SFF and Switch will drive to support innovation initiatives and community activities that will drive talent development, the reskilling and upskilling of the financial and tech workforce, and at the same time continue to champion key themes such as inclusion, green technologies, and sustainability. The event will shine a spotlight on the trailblazing pioneers who have made a difference, as well as rising stars with the potential to transform global industries. On that note, I would like to close my presentation by inviting all of you to join us at the Singapore Fintech Festival and Switch this year. We actually see the value of using this platform to reinvigorate the financial service sector and kickstart their recovery response. These partnerships give us an opportunity to stimulate cross-border activity and strengthen ties between Singapore and the countries globally by building on our existing business and economic cooperation agreements. Through this initiative, we aim to help businesses to connect with the global fintech community from anywhere in the world and drive cross-border partnerships and business activities. We feel that this could become a global movement to help businesses get back on their feet in 2021 and beyond. So hope you found the presentation useful, and hope to connect with you digitally in December at the SFF and Switch. Thank you very much.
That was great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jael. What an impressive journey. That was truly inspiring. Don't you all think? It's so interesting to see that in 5 years' time only, you went from 50 fintechs to over 1,100 in 2020. That's really inspiring, and that really says a lot about the enabling environment you put in place. So thank you so much for sharing all that. Just to share an African perspective, our estimation from the study we conducted here at CFC with our member community, PwC, is that there are currently over 400 active fintechs companies across the continent, 80% of which are homegrown and 20% are international. We are more or less in the same spot where you were 5 years ago, with approximately 50 active fintechs here in Morocco. So it's really inspiring to see all that growth in a short span of time. Obviously, in Africa, payments dominate the industry, given the continent's large unbanked population and our focus on financial inclusion. That was really inspiring. Thank you so much, Jael, once again. I see we have some questions. Thank you all for your interaction on the chat box. It's so good to see you interacting. We see your questions, Zinab, Jalil. It would really be great to interact on those Moroccan questions in the chat box also. I know we have friends from the regulators that are there. Some people from our audience are requesting if the central bank is currently developing a soft regulation for fintechs. I know some work is going on there. So if anyone could address that on the chat box would be great. Quick question for you, Jael. One of our audience members is asking if you could elaborate just a little more on the role of Sandbox. Jael, would you like to take that one? Or maybe we could, Jael could respond to that in the Q&A box. Okay, so how are we feeling so far? Let's drop some messages and let us know if you're, to keep the energy flowing, and let us know if you're still fully engaged with us. Type yes in the chat box if you're still fully engaged with us. We're halfway through the program, and we are moving on now to the panel discussion moderated by Mr. Sugumaran, Regional Director of Entreprise Singapore Dubai office, from where they cover the Middle East and North Africa countries. Entreprise Singapore's mandate is to help Singapore companies internationalize abroad by building capabilities, accessing global opportunities, and fostering innovation. By the way, this year, Sugu and his team were planning to organize a fintech mission to Morocco. Some of the people in the audience were asking, when will that happen? So there you go. That's definitely in the plans. So, but unfortunately, due to COVID, of course, we decided to start with this webinar, and hopefully next week, we will organize for the mission to come. Welcome to you, Sugu. How are you doing today?
Hi, Manal. I'm doing great. How are you?
It's awesome to have you. I can't wait for you to introduce us to your incredible lineup of speakers. Over to you, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks, Manal. I'm very honored to be moderating this panel. And Enterprise Singapore is pleased to be working with Casablanca Finance City again. And we hope to make further inroads between both countries in terms of fintech. I'm pleased to introduce my panel. So firstly, we have Mr. Umang Mundra, Managing Director for APAC at Fidor Solutions. I have Mr. Liang Yensui, Chief Technology Officer at Adera Global. Ms. Saïda Chakri, President for Moroccan Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. And Mr. Nicholas Wee, Senior VP and Chief Architect at Crimson Logic. I'd like to get all my panelists to turn on their cameras and audio, please.
I'm on, Sugu.
You're on? Great. Is everybody on?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm on too.
Thanks, everyone. Umang, maybe I'll start with you. You've obviously lived across most of Asia over the span of your career. How has Singapore been able to attract some of the region's top accelerators and innovation labs and also be home to you today?
So you mean to say, what is Singapore's secret sauce? The whole world wants to know that. It's funny, Jael Mistan from MAS spoke about the various effects that have led to Singapore establishing itself as one of the top 3 global fintech hubs. She also explained in detail many of the specific initiatives that have been key to the success. But let me share my view from a slightly different but completely complementary perspective. And this will take 2 minutes. I think in addition to everything that Mistan mentioned, there's also a very potent combination of what I call the 5 C's, the 5 C's. And the first being creativity. There is a word in Hokkien, kiasu, that many Singaporeans would use to describe, Singapore. It's a small country with no natural resources, and the entire ecosystem here is continually thinking of creative ways, not just to stay competitive, but actually to stay ahead. It's built into the DNA of the country. And this helps the country identify sectors, technologies that we are best placed to lead in. Financial services is a key component of Singapore's economy. And within that, fintech has been identified as one such sector. The second C is commitment. Once fintech was identified as a sector, the entire ecosystem, public, private, MAS as a regulator included, moved towards creating the necessary infrastructure to help achieve the goals to be successful. In many countries, you find public-private sector working at odds, government departments speaking at cross purposes. You never see that in Singapore. There is complete commitment from every part of the ecosystem. The Singapore Fintech Festival, Project 2-Bit, everything that Jael referred to is example of this creativity and this commitment. The third is consistency. A lot of focus on doing things the right way, even if that takes some time. And as a result, you get consistency of message, consistency of implementation, and consistency of policy. There is continuous reevaluation, recalibration, but given that everything has been thought through in such detail, there is no policy U-turn, no flip-flops. So there is consistency. The fourth C is collaboration, and I refer specifically to the collaboration between FIs and fintechs. While they do compete and will continue to, both sides have rightfully identified that the best way forward is to collaborate and to innovate together. That is the way for banks to keep their competitive edge and for fintechs to grow. And the last one is, the last C is complacency. And what I mean actually is the lack of complacency. Singapore doesn't ever rest on its laurels. Small Red Dot is the world leader in so many areas, and yet, given its kiasu nature, is constantly looking at ways to reinvent itself. There is absolutely no room for complacency. And so I know that was a little bit of a force fit into the 5 C's,
Sure.
lack of complacency. But in my view, it is these C's: creativity, commitment, collaboration, consistency, lack of complacency. That's what makes this such an attractive destination for the world's leading companies, big, small, and the world's top meritocratic talent to be here in this country.
Thanks.
That's my view.
That's definitely a wonderful advertisement for Singapore as a destination. I'll move on to Saïda. She's the Moroccan lady on the panel and the only Moroccan on this panel. Saïda, you've lived in Singapore for quite some time. You work in banking. You're obviously a big fan of Singapore as well. How has your adjustment to Singapore been, and how has your experience living in Singapore been?
Yeah, thanks Sugu, and thanks to CFC and Enterprise Singapore for having the Moroccan Chamber of Commerce participate in this webinar. So yeah, I've been living in Singapore and working in Singapore for over 7.5 years now, and roughly 2 years in Hong Kong. So, I mean, really the first impression you get when coming to Singapore as a foreigner is really how seamless your experience is. And by that, I mean almost all aspects of your private and professional life. So you really get to experience how digitalization can enhance not only people's lives, but also, corporations who wish to come and set up, their company in Singapore. And in the context of the Morcham, which is a nonprofit organization, it just took us a few days to incorporate the company. But that obviously excludes the part where you need to open a bank account, which takes a bit longer. But it just shows, how Umang is laughing for good reasons, I think. I just wanted to, really highlight the fact that it was very easy for us to set up the entity here in Singapore. And that in mind, when we set up Morcham, it was very clear for us that we really wanted to take full advantage of all digital solutions that were available to us to make sure, that we set up this structure, this entity as seamlessly as possible, because all executive members of the Morcham, we all have a job here, and we are doing this above and beyond as volunteers. So it was very important that we, have digital, operations and financial solutions to enable us to run this Morcham as easy as possible.
Thanks.
So today, yeah.
Okay. Nicholas, I'm coming on to you. Crimson Logic has obviously helped many governments in their digitalization journey. Could you share a bit more about how the governments around the world have benefited from your solution?
Sure. Okay, so Crimson Logic's mission really is to support government in their digital transformation. And I will reference maybe 3 of our more recent projects that we have done. One in Africa, one in the Caribbean, and the other in Asia Pacific, right? And in where each of the government that we have helped in the digital transformation, where we rolled out over 200 services to them for each of them. I think one of the key benefits that, and a very apparent benefit that we can see today, especially in this pandemic situation, is the accessibility to government services, right? And so government services has been online, and no citizen or no business has been denied access to the government services, and government continues to offer the services to the member of public and to the businesses. The other and more related to this seminar or webinar is really about transparency. As part of the services we roll out is really an online and mobile payment service to allow revenue to be collected digitally, and for members of public to pay these services from wherever they are, regardless of time and location. Now, this actually may seem like a trivial thing to a lot of people. So what's so great about mobile services? Mobile payment or online payment? the reality is that in a lot of developing nations, one of the key challenges they face is really about revenue collection and revenue leaks. And by centralizing an online and mobile payment collection services, we can associate transactions or business services rendered with payment done as well. So it's very easy, once you have done this, it's very easy to actually discover if there are some funny activities that are being conducted. In fact, immediately after our implementation and from the reports and that we actually churn from the system, we actually discover a fraud case that was in progress. And so this actually increases the transparency and help government to nip the revenue leak issue and nip fraudulent transactions issue in the bud. And the last value I will say is really about the quality of service. In terms of the user or the customer experience when engaging the government for its services. And this is reflected in two ways. The time taken for the transaction to complete. In one instance we have is that is a citizen services. Before we digitalize the service, which means to streamline and to to automate some of those key activities. When it was done in their old system in an old manual way, you find long queues, okay, that stretches within long snaking queues that snake within the office all the way out to the streets, and citizens are made to wait for their service regardless of the weather condition. And after the transformation, after the digitalization, a citizen or member of public can get what they need to get done in less than 3 minutes. They go into the office, register themselves, go to the counter, things are done, and that's if they come to counter. Where part of the work is now done online, and they don't even turn up at the municipal centers. And it's the same for businesses when they are setting up. Things that took months for the clearance and approval and the issuance of a company permit has been cut down to days or weeks, depending on the nature of the business they're registering for. So I would say these are the three key benefits, really: accessibility, transparency, and quality of service.
Thanks, Nicholas. Liang, if I can move over to you. Adara has obviously grown from the base in Singapore and now covers a number of regions in Southeast Asia. What are some of the technologies that you have rolled out more on the fintech front? I know you have solutions for unbanked and so on. Maybe you could share a bit about that.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, I will share some story we're having here. Adara, we are a Singapore company. Actually, we focus to the secure data processing. So actually, we have some solutions like we're using several aspects to benefit, to contribute to the South Asia, right? Southeast Asia, the countries. I give you one example. Like, I'm not sure you know, like in Philippines, from the 2017, the government have a program called the Public Unity Vehicle Modernization Program, which is, I'm not sure you know, in Philippines, actually a lot of public transportation, they are using the jeepney, which is like a kind of a minibus. So it's quite the old vehicle, waste a lot of energy, whatever. So government have a program to upgrade this public transportation system. So by using the high technology, so like from our side, we have an e-wallet solution to provide this system upgrade to use so-called automatic fare collection system. So by doing this wallet solution, right, the passengers, they onboard in the mini bus, they can use a mobile, right, to buy based on the QR code to do the payment, to buy the QR code ticket. Also, the fee can be set up as check-in, check-out based on the distance, the check-in, check-out based on the segmentation. We also integrate the GPS. So it's really to go by the GPS to get the instance, to get the distance to do that. So it's fully digitalized. So the Philippine side, they can use this technology to upgrade, right, their fare collection system. This is one example. Also, like this project, because of digitalization, with this COVID-19, because government have a more requirement to say how to do the better tracing, right? So with digitalization, every day, this fare system, we can generate report like in each jeepney, when, who is in this jeep, in this minibus. So we can generate this automatically by the digitalization. This is one story we can share, how we use our fintech solution to enable, right, the Southeast Asia, this kind of country to upgrade their infrastructure based on the payment, based on the e-wallet, these kind of things. Yeah.
Thanks, Liang. Umang, coming back to you, MES, you highlighted the fact that MES has worked closely with both local and foreign companies in developing a dynamic ecosystem. What's Fido's experience been? How's this conversation between the different stakeholders been for you?
You're on mute,
Great. So as I mentioned earlier, Singapore has a secret sauce, and we at Fido just love this secret sauce, which is why this is designated as our regional office. We found great receptivity to our concept of the Student Academy. Singapore is where it all began. Fido's thought leadership on open banking has been very well received. We've had great support from EDB, the Economic Development Board. Jael spoke about APEX. Many of you would have heard about that. It's an initiative launched by MAS, IFC, and the ASEAN Bankers Association. It's a global open architecture platform that supports financial innovation in ASEAN and helps banks and fintechs to connect with one another, to design experiments in a collaborative manner, to deploy new digital solution. The way this fosters collaboration is quite revolutionary. We are part of creation of the whole concept, and we've been part of the entire platform from day one. So whichever way you look at it, whether it is receptivity to ideas, whether it is its own creativity, whether it is getting the best of capabilities from across the world to come into Singapore and to bear onto the needs of the ecosystem here. I mean, our experience has just been fantastic in that sense.
Thanks, Umang. Saïd, being in Singapore, wanted to hear your thoughts on what you think the Moroccan fintech ecosystem can adapt, and what's the competitive advantage for Morocco in North Africa for fintech. That's a question from Zineb Dadoun on the Q&A panel. So just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, we definitely have a competitive advantage just by the mere fact that Morocco is viewed as the gateway to Africa. So we have a strategic position and an entry point to a billion market, a billion markets in Africa. And also, there's a lot that is going on in Morocco. We have, incubators and accelerators such as La Factory, who are doing a great job. They have over, thousands of startups that they have incubated. So there is talent, there is innovation that is happening in Morocco. And, we have the potential to reach what Singapore has been reaching so far. And, having this webinar today will help to kind of set up a framework and ensure that, the fintech ecosystem players starts playing, I would say, catching up, because the question is no longer if and when, but it's, it's now, it's happening now, and we need to take, you need to take actions today. And it not only happens at government levels, but it's everybody's, responsibility to put their stone to the building.
Thanks.
So to say.
Thanks, Saïd. Nicholas, want to speak a bit more about Singapore's Smart Nation initiative. What would your lesson be for Moroccan corporates and government entities who are on this webinar today? what would you say would be the critical areas that they should focus on?
Okay, let me answer the question in a different way. Really, Singapore Smart Nation is just another what I call a plan that the government has put in place as part of the ongoing transformation that that has never stopped since 1980s when we first digitalized, right? So Smart Nation is just another brand for this new milestone that we want to cross, and is about digitally transforming themselves and reinventing itself. And for this to happen, really, Singapore never stopped in its journey of transformation in that sense. And for this to happen, really, one of the key things is that you need to have a good foundation in governance and in a good regulatory framework. And I think this is what we are looking at when we talk about fintech and all those things. We really need a strong regulatory framework to govern and to regulate because if lack of regulation, what will happen is that some of the innovations may run contrary to what you want to achieve at the end of the day. So I think that's key as a digital transformation, as part of the journey of reinventing itself, regardless of whether is it in the fintech industry or even in the other sectors that the country needs to deal with. But you need a good governance structure, you need a good regulatory framework, right? And that is essential for you to, I would say, start anything. Second thing is that we find, especially in the recent part, especially in this Smart Nation initiative, or the milestones that we are in this digital transformation milestones that we are in, is speed to market is really critical, and we see this speed to market impact, especially the value of this speed, the ability to go fast and the ability to deploy services fast. Especially critical in this pandemic situation that Singapore was faced with. You see how fast that the government react and came out with an application to help contact tracing, and enable it to be deployed quickly, right? So speed to market is the other lesson that we really need to look at. And for this speed to market to happen, is really through close collaboration with the industry, right? The government worked very closely with the industry to actually roll out some of these services, to deploy some of these services. And I see that for fintech to happen in Morocco, really is about how do we collaborate the industry with the innovators, with the startups, and how do you therefore tying the regulatory aspect with the startup, as what we are doing, providing sandbox to actually allow them to innovate, and yet innovate in a way that in the direction that you want the fintech or the financial industry to go towards. So I think these are the key aspects that I think Morocco can actually learn from Singapore in a sense, or the key issues, key areas that they should look at to actually what I call expedite their fintech industry.
Okay. Liang, there's been a number of questions on the panel about what are the missing links. You've obviously done work in the region outside of Singapore, and there's a lot of similarities to say the growth of the Indonesian fintech ecosystem, and there's parallels to what's happening in Morocco. What would you say are the missing links that other countries typically do not have, that Singapore has sort of put in place?
Oh, this is a tough question. Okay, I would rather to say for another way. Yeah, I can see what is the Singapore side a strong point, right? Compared with our experience in ASEAN, like we do have a partner in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Cambodia, to do this kind of fintech project. And most thing first, really, from Singapore side, we have a very good government framework to support us, right? From like our how to build the talent, like we can get the recruitment support, we can get the government to working with our training, our university system. We need to train our staff to get more like AI knowledge, cybersecurity knowledge. So government working with our NUS, NTU to have this kind of program. So we can recruit the people. We also could send our employee to the university to attend the special program to enhance our knowledge in our team to support. Second, third, the government also provide, even like enterprise is helping us because especially during this COVID-19, the international, traveling is almost mission impossible. But we do have opportunity outside Singapore. We do have ongoing project outside Singapore, which our government enterprise, especially for example, will help us to connect the partner in this country, can support us. We can go beyond outside of Singapore, still can make our project ongoing with a remote conference, with a contact point in local, with better knowledge transfer to the local partner. We can continue. We also still can remotely to engage the potential opportunity. I think that is the things I can see from the Singapore side. I do appreciate all the support from the government agency, the framework. I can see this is the most important difference compared with Singapore's fintech. Yeah.
Thanks. Umang, there's a question from Mr. Naal Islam. His question is on how replicable is the Singaporean secret sauce? What are the basic and first steps that Morocco should take? And he sees the hurdle of moving from policy to implementation on the ground.
So if I may, the reason, Sugu, I actually went up one level higher than what Ms. Tan from MAS had spoken about, right? Those are very specific initiatives that were relevant to the Singapore ecosystem, right? And it was Morocco has a very different, it's a very different country. It's a much larger country, much different market. And many of those things may be applicable, will be applicable, and some will not be applicable. And the stage of development of the two countries, stage of development of the two economies is very different. And therefore, different things are applicable. Often countries that are lesser developed have the ability to actually leapfrog one or two generations of developments that have happened and go into a completely new sphere. I would frankly go back to the point that I had made earlier. The 5 C's, be creative. The entire ecosystem has to be committed. It cannot just be one part of the ecosystem that is committed. There has to be consistency. You cannot keep changing views, policies, rules every other day because that just completely destroys the entire ecosystem. People don't know what they have to be able to deal with. Collaboration, foster collaboration, right? This whole thing about fintechs will eat the bank's lunch and the banks will buy out of fintech is all exaggerated. No one's going to do that. The true benefit lies in everyone collaborating. And whatever success you achieve, do not stop at that. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Don't be complacent. So I'm repeating what I said earlier, I know, but I said that because I truly believe that has been key to what Singapore has done. And that is what other countries can also hopefully replicate in terms of the framework that they created. As Nicholas said, as Liang said, the framework is very, very important.
Sure. Saida, there's a lot of interest from panel attendees to work with the Chamber on initiatives around fintech. Maybe if you could just wrap up with some of the initiatives that you're planning to do in the next months ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was answering to Sophia, so she will get the answer. So, I mean, to speak about the initiatives that we have in the pipeline or have recently launched, we obviously, given the recent pandemic, had to redefine how we also do business. So we are basically have 2 key priorities. So it's to continue to help and connect corporations, entrepreneurs, startups that aim to widen their geographic footprint and access to the Singapore/ASEAN market, because we view Singapore as being the gateway to Southeast Asia. So One of the programs that we have recently launched is a mentoring program. That program again is fully digital, virtual, and you know, our first pilot was launched with students in Morocco, with mentors being you know, Moroccans, experienced Moroccans in Morocco. So it's a 90-day program, fully digital, fully virtual, and it's going to end in end of October. The second pilot, so we're working with Entreprise Singapore, and we also, you know, engaged with two big incubators and accelerators in Morocco, and we are trying to design a mentoring program as well for those startups. So that's something that is in the pipeline, and so please stay tuned. There's more to come to that. And we are also working with other partners like Portnet in you know, designing webinars that would benefit both Morocco and Singapore. So if anybody is interested in knowing more, please do not hesitate to reach out to us directly. We'll be happy to explain more.
Thanks, Saïda. Nicholas, I just want to get a quick view on you on global supply chains. Obviously, FinTech also has enabled gaps in supply chains. What's your view on that, and how can some of the FinTechs on this session address those challenges?
Okay, so in trade, I think one of the key areas. Okay, let me rewind what about say. One, we know that global trade is down, right? And this is contributed partly or largely by the pandemic, and second, maybe is really the trade war that is ongoing, and so we see trade going down. We look at our financial numbers because one of the key things we offer as a service in Crimson Logic is global trade. And it's about, and the service we offer is really about how to do electronic submissions to the authorities, to the respective authorities in the different countries, and then facilitate the logistics and the trade for the cargo to move from country to country. So what we found is, of course, we charge on a transaction model. And what we found is, of course, the revenue from transactions has gone down because the global trade volume has also gone down. But what we found was that we are receiving more subscription into the service. So that translate in the situation whereby people who have been or people who have transacted, or businesses that have transacted with the government using manual means are now switching over to digital means. And with the switch over, of course, they reap the benefits that the service provider provides, besides business optimization, process optimization, to actually that's related to FinTech really is about trade financing. I think the current way of financing trade, I think, is still very limited. I think a lot more could be done in how do you facilitate trade finance. And I think this is one of the areas that I think a lot more work, I think, can be done, especially to facilitate trade finance, especially cross-border trade financing, right? And I think this will help in this trade sector, and it will help recover because the thing is that, yes, the trade war is between the two main countries, but it's not stopping trade from still continuing with other countries, right? So and trade should go on, and there's a great need for how do we finance the trade and the cargo movement from country to country.
Thanks, Thanks, Nicholas. I wanted to end the panel on a note of optimism and opportunity for some of our panelists and attendees of today's event. Once again, I'd like to thank the panel for your very wonderful insights, and I hope to meet all of you all very soon. Thank you, and back over to you, Manal.
Thanks, Sugu.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone. This has been a wonderful panel, really insightful. Unfortunately, it's about time for us to wrap up. I want to thank again our speakers and panelists very much for participating and making this a great program. It's been really a lively discussion with great insights. On behalf of CFC and Entreprise Singapore, I would like to thank all of our audience for joining us. If you would like any further information of any of the topics discussed today, please feel free to reach out to any of our speakers. We have shared QR codes with contact details. Also, we encourage you to reach out to Saïd to be part of the FinTech community. Vincent, if you can help me move on to the next slide would be great. Thank you so much. I just want to say to our audience, thank you so much for interacting with us in the Q&A box, the chat box. We have been getting so many questions. Nael, Bajid, Leila, we see you, we see your questions. Be assured that this is just the first step. We do plan on organizing brainstorming and also debriefing session to discuss on all those questions that are related to the Moroccan FinTech, Moroccan African FinTech. Let's do this together. So please write in just scan the QR code for Saïd Jael, who is our FinTech coordinator here at Casablanca Finance City, to keep in touch with us. We would also be glad to organize a B2B matchmaking event to connect the Singapore FinTech companies and the Moroccan counterparts. Majid, you're referring to an initiative, the Moroccan Startup Ecosystem Catalyst. Yes, big yes, we would be really happy to connect and work together on that. So please, whoever is interested, feel free to drop an email to Miss Aya Maria from ESG so we can track your interest. Her contacts are there as well. Also, before we close the program, we really would like to get your feedback on how we did. We designed these programs, hopefully, to meet the needs of our audience, our members, and our community. So if you'd like to share with us, we would greatly appreciate it. When we close this webinar, the survey will appear on your screen. So if you could take 1 more minute just to answer, it would be really appreciated. So this concludes our remarks for today. Again, thank you, everyone, co-hosts, speakers, audience. Please be safe out there and enjoy the rest of the day. It's 2 minutes over 11:15, and this concludes our broadcast. Thank you.